We are live.
Live.
We're live. I think we're going live. We're just, the
Live from Bella Vista.
live from Bella Vista, guys. So, it looks like we're on board, and hopefully everyone is tuning in. So, wanted to welcome everyone aboard to tonight's Welcome Aboard Tuesday Night Chats with Birchie and Jeremy.
Yes, been a while.
Been a while. Back due to popular demand, Jeremy. Everybody.
Yeah, great. It's fantastic. I love talking to people. The new people, the better.
Everybody loves you, Jeremy.
Most of my mates now are over the phone.
Really?
Yeah.
Just being corona safe, yeah?
Just being corona safe. Just wipe down the desk, wipe down the phone and talk.
Yeah,
and talk.
because it could come through there. Yeah.
It comes through everything. I told you I got chased by a coronavirus at JB House the other day. Almost got me.
I welcome aboard everyone to this week's Tuesday Night Live. We've got lots of cool things to talk about, and they have changed our viewing of how this all works, Jeremy, recently.
What have they done?
Well, they've just wanted to mix it all up, So we're missing the comment section. It's like I have to find the comments. So
Is this owned now by Meta, right, though, isn't it?
well, it was always known by that.
That's
You call
Crashed.
something a dog shit or something different, and it's what you
know.
sprinkles on it. Yeah. So welcome aboard everyone to this week's Tuesday Night Live. Got a special guest, Jeremy Johnson, here from the B.Invested HQ. Yeah, Jeremy's one of our investor relation managers. A lot of you guys that are a part of our community may know Jeremy.
Talk to me over the phone.
Yeah.
Or not.
Yeah.
Or talk to at least one of the four or five others.
Or spoken to you at some point over the last 5 years or so.
At some point. At one point, one of you was a client of mine and now has moved on to greener pastures and looked after by one of the other capable crew.
So everybody loves when Jeremy's here. So
We just got to not get banned. That's the only thing. I've got to be careful what I say.
I've given a strict instructions to Jeremy, things he cannot say, and we're not going to go there, Jeremy.
Got all the words written down
all
here.
the words he's not allowed to say.
Talk about.
And so it's really good to be on board and to have everyone here. So thanks a lot for tuning in, everyone, and look forward to an awesome evening. So I guess, just before I get started, I've given you guys a bit of a background that Jeremy is a part of the crew here at the B.Invested headquarters. But I guess, Jeremy, if you want to tell everyone a little bit about your background and, what you do and, all that sort of stuff.
Well, I'm doing a PhD at the moment. I got till the end of December to do it.
Yeah.
And it's on one of the great renegades, the last of the great pioneer women, a lady called Diane Salento, that I knew. I lived up in Far North Queensland. So when you talk about buying property over at Far North Queensland, I get it because I think it's one of the best parts of Australia.
Yeah.
Up there. I lived up there, and so I'm doing a PhD on her. So I'll be Dr. Johnson hopefully by this time next year.
Okay.
All looking good. And I'm new to the western suburbs, relatively new, the last 10 years. I haven't lived out here in this giant concentration camp for the tax office. Most of my life has been spent either in Texas or east of George Street.
Yeah, so you come from a very different lifestyle.
A different world,
yeah.
but I can't stand going back there. They're not well in their head. When you get all your entire information from the Sydney Morning Herald and Channel 9 and the ABC, there's not a lot to talk about, you know what I mean? 1 and 1 equals 11. Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
You're very well grounded. You've got lots of knowledge, and you always surprise me, Jeremy, because we can talk about this weird and wacky stuff, and like people sometimes look at us like, what are you talking about there, Nathan? What are you talking about, Jeremy? But we get it. We ask questions. Yeah. We've got our own mind. There's few people in the world that have free thinking now that aren't programmed.
You just ask yourself, who benefits?
Yeah.
Whatever any interest story happens, always follow the money and always ask, who really benefits from this?
There's a trail.
There's always a trail. You've got to follow that trail. And whenever there's a news story, you go, what's this news story covering up?
Yeah.
An election is covering up something. Whether number 31 gets to keep his SIM card or he has to hand it over to number 32, that is basically what we're voting for.
Well, soon we're going to get to number 33. So.
Well, and one day it'll be number 33, whoever that's going to be.
So on that note, right, there's going to be one of our topics today is following that money. So I think we've got a few comments here. fresh off the press is about that Twitter and Elon Musk talking about following that money. We'll go follow the trail of crumbs that leads us to some more corruption.
Full surveillance. And not hiding nowhere.
Exactly. So, most popular topic, is there like a thing where we're meant to be talking about specific things today?
Jeremy? The collapse of the fiat economy is the headline.
Yeah, I just didn't know if you had something specific that we're going to talk about or not, or if I'll just jump into it, we'll just bounce
I think let's just go into that, because, I mean, the election is pretty boring for everybody, because everyone hates everybody who's up for office anyway.
Well, I'm politically atheist, I used to, identify myself as a liberal growing up, but then I look at myself now and I think, if you had two arms of that one beast, right, I want to know who's the puppet master behind it. And everyone's like, oh, Liberal or ScoMo or Albo or whatever. And it's like, who voted, right? If you ask my view for the election, it ain't going to be for a big party for me, right? I'll put them at the lowest. Independents, even them do corruption in there. Like, there's just
Allegra Spender. Yeah, that's a good one. Carlos Zambati's daughter's running for Wentworth as an independent, but their votes are going to go to Labor. Their preferences go to one of the big parties, so it doesn't matter whether
it doesn't matter. It's all fun. So in that case, right, everyone should be realising that this is a selection and it's not an election. You've got a couple of options that you can select from, right? But, we can't say we want Jeremy as our Prime Minister, because it's never going to happen, right? You can't say we want Nathan as our Prime Minister unless we're a puppet for the
cabal that runs everything. So basically, you're like the house Negro back in the South, the deep South of pre-Civil War America, like Stephen in Django Unchained. That's all you are as a leader in Australia, and even as a CEO. Yeah. You have your masters overseas telling you what to do.
What you can and can't do.
Yeah,
exactly.
You've got no real power except to audit people. That's it.
I want to talk about our first topic of the day, which is, and I want to spend a fair bit of time on this. Is about half an hour on this, and this is the collapse of the fiat monetary system, right? We've been talking about it for a very long time. A lot of people are now coming in, they're questioning, what's going to be happening with, the interest rates, for example, right? It's probably a question you're getting from a lot of investors.
Yeah, are they going up or down?
Going up or down, right? I want to jump in and look at some of the facts. It's good for the news, which is just a propaganda outlet for these big entities to put propaganda out there, but time and time again they have been wrong, and they are wrong today, and I will prove it to you. So going back in and around the start of 2017, 2018, I talked about a fair few weird things out there. A lot of comments went on my videos, and that people were saying, stop doing drugs, Nathan, you're off your head, unsubscribing, the things you're saying is too messed up. And I talked about hyperinflation, I talked about a depression, the GFD, the global financial depression, and we are in it. Everyone thinks they've been having fun for the last few years. It's like...
Well, not really. They haven't been having fun because they've all been locked down in prison.
Well, they have. They haven't been having fun, but they've had money coming through because it's all fake, right? It's like a temporary party. Everyone's out getting drunk, and then one day the hangover's going to come, and the only way you can stop the hangover is to keep drinking, right?
Keep it, hair of the dog.
And it's, we talked about this many years ago, and I think we're heading into the next phase of this, and that's a hyperinflation. It's very different to what the media is saying out there. I said at the start, it was actually February 2019, you were there, Jeremy, when we did the second last event that I did live, which was the Raw and Uncut mentoring program out at Riverside Oaks in northwest Sydney. We did like a retreat, and I said that not before 90 days and not after 120 days we would see a rate cut of 25 basis points followed by consecutive months of rate cuts, and we would see it go to zero and it would go negative interest rates. We haven't seen negative interest rates yet. At the time in February 2019, Philip Lowe, maybe just go and Google, I should have had some articles on this, he was actually saying the next rate move would be up, and the next rate move was down, and everyone was like, oh wow, and it was just after the election, funny enough, but it has nothing to do with the election. It was just because of the liquidity in the system, and we had inverted yield curves. A lot of people now listening to the news, they haven't listened to the news because they've been brainwashed about certain viruses and tablets they should be taking, medication, whatever, injections and whatever else. But now everybody's listening about, oh, poor Ukraine, poor Russia. And now they're talking about interest rates. Everyone's like back into it. And they're like, oh yeah, the interest rates are going to go up, man.
That's all they hear, because that's what they hear. It's going to go up.
But I'm the most confident motherfucker out there, Jeremy, because I know that there's only two ways to go about it. They go up, and then the whole system
The
crashes.
entire system, because people
Which
can't
would be
afford
amazing.
to pay for their mortgages.
It's worse than what it was 5 years ago, because beforehand you had lower debt. Everyone had half the amount of mortgage on their house. The government had almost no debt, but now it's got $1 trillion worth of debt. All the corporations that don't make money had less debt. Everybody now is full of debt, right? Even going to buy... I sold my Ford Ranger, right? I bought it for 74 grand. I sold it 2 years later for $73,000. It even had the engine light going when I sold the thing, and it just needed a service. But when I went back online to see what they were selling for, the cheapest one was $95,000,
Yep.
right? People are literally going out there and getting a loan for a Ford, right? A Ford, right? For 100 grand, right? And buying these things. So if there was interest rates, people can't afford their lifestyle as it is, right? And you've seen them put
Especially in Sydney, and with food prices.
Well,
everything.
anywhere.
And supply chain.
People have had food prices rising, they've had petrol prices rise, they've had their furniture rise, they've had everything go up. Wages haven't really gone up, which they will. It's a part of the hyperinflation, but people will never be able to afford what they can't, what they're trying to do. So now we're going to throw in the mixture and potential that we're going to have all the corporations collapse, the businesses will have less money. We're going to go into a deflationary mode. And we've seen a handful of countries, whether it be New Zealand, whether it be the US, Canada, UK, these guys have all started putting their rates up, and that's why people are being scared for, right? But I want to take a deep dive because something really important happens. And there's this chart that I shared beforehand, and unfortunately it's printed in black and white. I'm just going to show this chart here. There's something on the bottom of it which we'll look at later. This is a yield curve. So in general sense, if you are buying bonds, right, a yield curve should be positive, right? It's a positive yield curve, meaning that the longer the term, right, if you've got a 10-year bond or a 30-year bond, that should be paying a higher interest rate than a 5-year bond or a 3-year bond or a 2-month bond. But then if you have a negative yield curve, that means that the 3-month is paying more than the 5-year, the 10-year, etc. And that death cross is where the fun happens. That's where we head into a recession. And we are now entering into that phase. Right? All these countries that have put up their interest rates, let's just have a look here. This is from Bloomberg, a very trusted source of news for everybody. We're looking here at the 3-month bond. It's 76 basis points, so it's 0.75%. 6 months is 1.33%, 133 basis points. And then you go to a 12 months, which is 1.93. And then you go to the 2-year. Where are we? A bit odd numbers here. I was reading the wrong side of it. They're actually just zero. But we go down to the 2-year, which is 2.25, the 5-year that's 2.5, the 10-year, which is 1.88, and lower.
Lower and lower.
Lower and lower and lower. And then there's a chart, if we have a look at the yield curve, which I think this has gone missing off my little...
It looks like the Spanish club cup from the Spanish club.
Let's have a look at it. Where is it, Jeremy? Where is it? It's very important that I share with you guys. Yes, this would be it. Oh, it's on the back of here. It's on the back of this. So this is what we are seeing now. So this is the current yield curve, right? It's a bit hard to see because it's in black and white and it's not in colour. So we have the current year, which is this one here. As we can see, all the rates have gone higher over recent time. But if we have a look when we had a healthier yield curve, which was in April 2020, and then we look at April 2021. So April 2020 is this one, April 2021 is this one, and this is 2022. What you will see is that once they dropped the interest rates, we had a positive yield curve, right? Every cycle is more and more, so it's a positive yield curve. And then in 2021 we started to see it getting steeper, right? And that's okay. But as we head into 2022, we start seeing it head up to here, and this is where it's getting funky because we are entering into a negative yield curve. So what happens is that as they push up the rates, what is occurring is that the liquidity is going to the shorter term bonds. So everyone's buying the shorter term bonds, they're paying a higher return, and no one's investing into the longer term bonds. And what they create is a liquidity crisis, and it causes deflation in the market, which is what we're seeing at the moment. So then what has to happen is the central banks need to come in, and that's where we had the repo crisis, which is a repurchasing crisis in September 2018, surprisingly just before that said flu that came out. And then they printed. Print. And that's why we're seeing the price go up. But unfortunately, that price has been blamed on the unfortunate virus that was out there. And then it was unfortunate for the lockdowns, then a supply chain issue. And then China, a trade war issue. And now it's Ukraine, right? The same problem is being carried on, right? They'll say it's Liberals' fault, they'll say it's Labor's fault, they'll say it's this person's fault, it's a dog. But no one is talking about the real issue, and that's the manipulation of the currency that's out there in the marketplace. We have a big issue here at the moment, which is inversion of the yield curve and the lack of liquidity out there.
So what do you reckon is how's the solution? How can we benefit from this?
Well, we're going into a little deflationary glitch, but if they push up interest rates, it's just going to cause the biggest crash we've ever seen, which takes us back to 2019, which is the global financial depression.
It's going to be worse than that, though.
Oh, it's going to be heaps worse. It's going to be heaps worse. The depression, I called it a depression. I didn't call it a recession. I called it a depression because the bigger it gets, the bigger the problem's going to be. So they've just tried to starve this for the last 3 years.
Yeah, they're putting off the inevitable.
Yeah. But now they're trying to go back to normal. But they can't. They can't even put the interest rate up, right? They can't take the interest rate back to its old high, right? If it goes back to 1.5% of where it was 3 years ago, everybody would die.
No one's going to go back to 2019.
They can't.
We can't go back.
Can't go back. So if it goes back, everybody in their house, in their McMansion around the corner from us here in Kellyville, Box Hill, any of those areas.
Nail gun land.
Nail gun land, yeah, I've never heard of that before. The houses with no eaves.
You can drop 20 cents between every house.
Pretty much.
And most of the time it'll get stuck.
Well, the hammers, so you're stuck all in between the houses, the coconut. Those areas, all these people that are now paying $1.5 million for a house without eaves, they'll be bankrupt straight away. But it doesn't even matter about the houses, right? Before it gets there, your government will be broke, corporations will be broke.
Bunnings will be broke.
They have no supply, but if the new supply that comes in is more expensive because the cost of goods have gone up and whatnot, then they drop their price. They're going to go bankrupt because they're in negative cash flow territory. So we now are stuck. How often do you go to the shops and you see the prices go up and they come down next week? It doesn't happen. That's our new normal that they talk about, right? Which is all by our friend here,
Klaus Schwab.
Satan Klaus.
Start on cloud. Kissinger's right hand.
Who's seen the movie from 1990 of Demolition Man? Demolition Man. In Demolition Man, we had this fella. In 2022, we have this fella. There's a lot of similarities here, right?
Except he does have the world under his thumb.
Yeah, exactly. One's just a show, and one's the real world. So here we are with Klaus and whatever the guy was off that show.
You will own nothing and you will be happy.
As we've seen of recent times, right? What has happened since they've started increasing interest rates, right? We've got interest rates increasing in the US, right? So we've got the bond yield inverting, right? We're seeing the shorter term bonds paying out a greater return, so liquidity is flowing out of the markets. A 10-year bond is based on where your interest rate for your mortgage is, so that's where they calculate mortgage rates from. Here's one of my mates posted onto his Facebook today. Mitch, shout out to Mitch. Some of you know who he is.
Yeah, Mitch.
Mitchy. We've got Amazon down 11% this year. Bitcoin is down 13% this year. Adobe is down 23% this year. Salesforce down 27%. Square is down 29%. Moderna, are we allowed to say that word? Moderna.
They got bad press. That's why they're down
35%.
Yeah.
Netflix down 35%. Facebook down to 40%. PayPal down 50%. Shopify down 60%, right? These are just companies, right? They're just companies that are falling, right? We've got stock market crashes. These companies were zombie companies to start off with. They were bankrupt from the start. I'm not even talking about their morals yet. I'm just talking about by the fact that they were bankrupted. And
They weren't earning
They
anything.
weren't earning anything. And now the liquidity is getting sucked out of the system. The system is reliant on cheap, dirty credit. Your property didn't get better. Your food you eat didn't get any better. All that happened is you have to pay more money for it, is because your money lost its value. And that is where we're heading.
And they're putting less stuff in. You buy chips or anything like that. Shrinkflation, yeah. So you're actually finding you're paying the same price. They say it hasn't gone up, but there's so much less in it.
Yeah, exactly. And as we go through, like this, I've got some articles here to go through. I've got a fair few articles, actually. Carolyn's done a great job today getting these for us.
Yes.
So as we look at here, what else do we have? We've got the inverted yield curve. One of the questions a lot of people ask is, how long can the RBA keep these rates at these low levels? They can put them up, they can try. The more that they put the rates up right now, the greater the stimulus package.
Yes.
Great.
Do you think they're going to do that? Do you think they're going to start opening their wallets and doing what they did before with the stimulus packages and giving them?
They didn't open their wallets. All they did is they went, oh, we'll just create some more IOUs, we'll buy some bonds, we'll take some shit out of the market.
No, but I mean, like, be able to sort of like put everyone on welfare and JobKeeper and JobSeeker and stuff.
It's called Universal Basic Income, or UBI. Sounds like a sexual transmitted disease, a UBI,
does.
but it means that your financial system is going to be fucked. So it's really,
and it all goes back in anyway, because people are only going to use them for essential services and stuff. But the main issue, I think, is the supply chain.
Yeah.
Because they're all the parts and stuff because China makes everything. We get everything from China.
Yeah.
And they're complete, and all these factories are shut down. So within the next couple of months, we're going to see a huge shortfall in building supplies and stuff. That's why it works for us to be able to sort of like buy existing properties, buy something, because
anything.
Yeah, but I mean, look, the house and land packages and stuff that people are spruiking, and it's going to be finished in 2 years, and and off the plan and that type of thing. It's so much money.
Yeah.
And you're not going to get the reward for it. You may as well buy something that you can't build
for that.
Yeah, a $60,000, $70,000, even $115,000 property.
Jeremy, I've got a question for you. A lot of people might be asking you. I've got heaps more news articles to go through and heaps of funny things to talk about today. Jeremy, you deal with our investors on a day-to-day basis,
yes.
right?
Yeah, a lot.
You'd probably hold, I don't know, maybe 30 properties a month or so for people?
Take them through.
Yeah.
About 30 properties a month.
Out of the properties that we buy, what percentage of properties would be under, say, $200,000?
Oh man, look, I don't know, but a lot. I'd say about 50% of them.
50%.
Yeah.
So
200,000. 180, 150.
I was doing a map session with someone on Friday night, and I was going for a drive. We're talking, lovely guy, Jerry. You might be watching. Shout out to Jerry, having this chat. And he said that he got stuck with one of these buyers agents out there, which tried to sell him into a granny flat, right? Yes. And he felt like the buyer's agent was getting a kickback for selling the granny flat as well. And with that granny flat, I asked him, like, how much did the granny flat cost you, or going to cost? And he goes, 220,000, right, to build a granny flat, right? A 2-bedroom granny flat costs like 200 grand, 230 grand. And it's like...
That's up 100 grand from what it was last year. It was 100.
And it was a shit investment then.
And it was a shit investment then now.
We're buying properties that are cheaper than what they were 10 years ago in markets that haven't exploded yet. They're starting to. They're like buying in the Gold Coast and Brisbane 5 years ago when people thought we were stupid. And we're picking up properties that are way below build cost, and they've got a cash flow from day one. So you can't even rebuild them for that price, which is,
And any repairs you're going to do that have to be done, because you've got to look after your property anyway. You make the choice whether you want to be a landlord or a slumlord, but everything you put into that property is going to help with rent. It's only going to help with its resale value, and you can't build for that anymore. It doesn't matter where it is in Australia.
The cash flow.
Yeah.
When you're looking at the companies, like we just said before, right? I don't even know what the earnings are. I don't look at these things. Amazon down 15%. Bitcoin doesn't. I love crypto, right? So don't think I'm hanging shit on that. But it's not giving you a return. It's like all the metal that you could have: copper, gold, silver. Precious metals, it doesn't bring you a return. I love it, right? I love Bitcoin, I love all these things. But I'm thinking, like, what would Square pay as a dividend? What would Netflix pay as a dividend? Oh, it's a payment network. It's a like an FBOS machine terminal. It's like a payment gateway. When I settle the motels that we buy, I have these squares and I ship them out to each motel. And for the first fortnight before the real ATMs come in FBOS terminals, they use Square machines. That's the only reason I know it now. Netflix, Facebook 40% down. What dividends do they pay, right? People aren't getting a yield on anything now, right? So when we look at a property and you buy something for 200 grand and it brings you $350 a week, that's 8%, 9% yield, 10% yield.
Nothing gives you that anymore.
Nothing gives you that. That's why there's a pent up demand. So just as much, and I'm going to put it on the record here, right? I always put my balls in line, Jeremy.
I do.
Surprised there's
Always
anything left of them nowadays.
Surprised there's anything left in them.
But I was just looking around at this. Everyone's saying interest rates are going to go up. I put my reputation on the line when I say that they will come down, right? They may go up 0.25%. They may go up
For
0.5%,
just
for like
cosmetic
a year,
purposes.
6 months, a year, 2 years. But they will come down. Within 18 months of our first rate hike, they will be down. And I have 100% confidence in that because the system is flawed. The system will collapse, just as we're seeing in every other nation that's putting them up. So I am a contrarian investor. I do have a different belief system. Here we are looking at an article here. The banks introduce negative interest rates to bolster economies. So there's actually been some laws that have been passed this year to say by September 2022 that each nation, right, and this is a global thing, right? Me and you being on the Facebook Live today, everybody watching us, it takes a lot to collaborate for everyone to be here at the same place, same time. Imagine every country around the world at the same time having their banks turn on a system. Imagine every country bringing in the same law, the same lockdown, the same whatever. It's like, who sent that memo to say you must do this? If you don't do it, you keep your foot up your ass, right? Who is organising this? That's the question, right? When we come back to the elections, who is controlling these shows? Who is controlling it? It's actually who, right? Well,
yes.
What else? But this year, they've made it so by September this year, the banks can go negative. But here's this article. This is from about 8-9 months ago. Earlier this year, the Bank of England, BOE, gave the UK banking system 6 months to prepare for negative interest rates. This was not because negative interest rates were definitely on the cards, but rather the Bank of England wanted to have the option to use them should the emergence of the resistant variations of that illness led to more lockdowns and further damage to their economic activity. We're going to have more lockdowns, right? We're going to have some more weird shit. If you
After the elections.
No, I wouldn't say the election.
No, after the election, because they're opening up everything now.
Oh, true.
You know what I mean? They're making things. You can go overseas.
I mean, globally, when the system crashes, right? And I will make sure that I share with you when I believe that we're going to see that black swan event, like we did in September 2019 before Corona. I cannot say what the next one's going to be. I've got no idea, right? This is like, I don't get those memos, right? It's a big club. None of us are invited to that club, but we can see the glitches. European economists and strategists with investment management firm Schroders says the BOE believes negative interest rates, if needed, could help it kickstart by getting money flowing out of banks and into the economy in the form of loans and mortgages, right? Quantitative easing, the BOE buying government bonds and corporate bonds is one way to do this, and cutting interest rates is another. As interest rates are now only 10 basis points, cutting much further would lead to negative interest rates. So what have they done? They've pushed up rates. They've taken away the stimulus package by buying the government bonds. We've seen the bond market collapse, right? It's not even, it's an implosion, right? The bond market's collapsed. We've got negative yields out there, and we're going to be heading into negative interest rate territory. The only way through this is for them to print more money, and the money must be cheap because there's so much debt out there. The only way for a house, the only reason why the $1 million house in Sydney went to $2 million isn't because the person earned more money, right? It's because the interest rate fell in half and it became so cheap for people to be able to afford. If it goes up, everyone dies. Yeah. So they've got to keep lowering it to keep the system.
But it's unsustainable.
It is unsustainable.
You can't, these houses that are worth, you know, 15, 20, 30 million dollars. It's not sustainable to keep that, and that's what I'm seeing now is that so many kids, you know, they're on 120, and they've got, you know, either 600,000 or a borrowing capacity for 1.1 million. They want to buy their own place, they can't. Yeah, no one can afford it.
It's a good point you make there, Jeremy.
With $1 million, you can't buy a house in Sydney. I mean, this is insane.
Exactly, right? So for $1 million, you can't buy shit. You can buy some units, and there's still some good value stuff in Sydney. Very rarely. I'm not a fan of buying any houses in Sydney. I'm not a fan of buying. There's only a couple of markets where the units are there, but rest of that, the only markets that I like are the markets where we can buy today for cheaper than what they were 5 years ago. You know those areas, Jeremy, because we buy them for like 300 grand.
Look, decentralisation is a reality. Although, yeah, you're right that Sydney will always be the doormat to the country. That's never going to change. Yeah. But the decentralisation is real, and it isn't. I don't believe it's going to go back. I don't think that once people have work out they can spend 4 or 5 days a week or work completely from home, that they're going to want to come back to a city. Yeah. If you can buy a place for $500,000 and sell your place for 2.6, why wouldn't you go and live 3 hours away from Sydney? Why wouldn't you go and live up in Port Macquarie? We've already seen the prices go up to 1.2 up there. Yeah. Everywhere on the Central Coast, and everyone that brought in, from B.Invested, all those clients who brought in Long Jetty and Entrance and Muswellbrook, 3 or 4 years ago, taking out 150.
Newcastle.
All that area that was really unfashionable, and you never thought a place like Stockton had ever, white pointer breeding ground of the planet, was ever going to be worth more than 40 grand. Now they're, $1 million, 1.2 million. These clients are pulling out 150,000 in equity. After only 2 or 3 years.
And that's where wealth is created. Like, a lot of people are now trapped because you're right, like, they're servicing you. People say, should I go buy my house to live in, or should I go buy the house to as an investment property? They quite often go by the house to live in, but it's not even their dream house. It's just something to get their hands onto. But because there's no cash flow, the servicing's based on their own earning capacity,
and they can't get out. So whatever they sell it for, they're going to be able to buy something similar. Another apartment.
Yeah, exactly.
They're never going to be able to afford to buy a house.
So that same $500,000 or $1 million that someone would spend on their house to live in, there's two differences. If they're buying it as an investment, they've got tenants paying their mortgages. They might have 5 tenants paying the mortgage at 200 grand a piece, rather than them having to go and slave their ass off and pay that one one mortgage themselves. If they have a day off work, or if they get injured, they're screwed. And they lose their job, they lose their house, and they get to see their kids every second weekend because it's...
and that's the other thing too, is I do get a number of clients who go, I really love what Nathan does and everything, but I want a higher end investment property. I go, what do you mean by that? I want to spend about 700 or 800 or 800,000, get something that's really nice. And go, and what would they be paying in rent for that? And they go, they get about 700, 800 a week rent. I go, and when the economy collapses, are they still going to be able to afford that rent? And point out that in 2020, when when everyone went into lockdown and everyone was losing their jobs, we lost 2 properties. Like 2 people said, I can't afford to pay the rent.
And they still paid it. They still paid it. And then all our rents, out of thousands of properties, but our rents have all gone up by about 30 to 40%.
Well, that's because you've got 30 or 40 people per showing. South East Queensland up to Lismore.
Property.
And they're not and they've gone up like $70, $90 a week.
Cairns, Townsville, Brisbane, Gold Coast, all those areas gone up. I just went upstairs beforehand. One of my properties became vacant in Sydney, this is, and my team at Blink just put up, you were there, right?
Yeah.
From $550 a week, it's in your neighbourhood, up to $700 a week straight away.
I was going to rent that. I'm glad I didn't end up renting that. I'm glad I didn't end up renting that place. I got another place.
But
just as
it's gone up crazy.
I couldn't afford $700 a week, Nathan.
We're now talking about hyperinflation, right? Hyperinflation explained. A lot of people are like, Nathan, it's stupid, right? Interest rates going down. Philip Lowe said in 2019, it's going to go up. Nathan, I can't take you serious. I'm going to delete you. Well, here we are with nothing on the interest rate. We've now got them talking about it going up again, but that's like saying you're going to rob a bank and go, if you don't step back, I'm going to shoot you. But the robbers saying they're going to shoot you, but they've got no bullets in their gun. They've got nothing to shoot at you.
What are they going to do? How many currencies in the last 10,000 years have survived?
The last 1,000 years from 1024 AD. It's actually really funny, Jeremy. The first hyperinflation occurred in China in 1024 AD. So it's Chinese that had an economy. That was like 1,000 years ago. That caused a hyperinflation. So they made a knockoff currency, and it was the first hyperinflation that occurred, right? And here we are nearly 1,000 years ago.
And how long did it last? Did any of them last longer than 50 years?
No, the longest one that we've got at the moment started in 1971, the 15th of August 1971. It's actually 51 years this year.
And counting.
It's really dead already. It's been in a vegetable state for the last
But do you think
decade.
that what Russia and China are doing with buying oil in rubles is going to kill the petrodollar? I mean, it's
it was dead already. That's a very adventurous topic, Jeremy. I spoke about it on my last one.
All right, okay.
But if we look at Saddam, right? He tried trading oil in euro.
Gaddafi.
Dead, 6 months. Gaddafi, dead, 6 months, right? They were terrorists. Here we are today with China, right, trying to trade yuan with oil, with petro yuan. They started a trade war. They started in March 2018 when that occurred. That's when the trade war happened. That's when they tried to do the deals with North Korea, with the US. That's when the sanctions all started. So yes, 100%, right? And they're trying to build that new Silk Road through Russia and the Russia and China
BRICS,
agreement,
yeah.
the BRICS. So these are things that are coming out to change the world that we live in today. And if you ask,
Russia's a bit different. Russia is a different entity than Iraq and Gaddafi in Libya.
they're
Because
much stronger.
They're much stronger. They own the oil and gas pipelines to Europe.
We're a change of the guard at the moment. Yeah. We're a change of the guard. People fear China. If you go back to the turn of the century, you had Great Britain as the leader of the world. Then it shifted to America, and then America reached a point where it couldn't expand any further. So then the real owners of the world, which we're not allowed to talk about on the other weeks, we can't talk about them today. But the real rulers of the world that we live in the fabric of society have gone to China and done deals with China, going back, probably when you were my age, Jeremy, many years ago.
Many decades ago.
Many decades ago.
China was not what it was back then. It was
very different.
It was a different world.
So that was the research and development. That was the testing ground of the new world order that we've got. And they've made a successful prototype of that, and now they're rolling that out to the rest of the world. So it is really just a change of the guard. People think that China makes all the cheap stuff and all that. China was designed to make that, and it's just like creating the Hyundai Excel back in the 1990s, and they moved on to
car, and now it is a luxury. The Hyundai Grandeur of all.
Exactly, right?
That would have been a luxury.
Who'd be spending $100,000 on a Hyundai, right? And we haven't even had hyperinflation yet.
Who'd have thought that Honda was going to be a luxury brand at one point?
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
The
Lexus became a luxury brand. Everything is how you sell it. How everything is instrument marketing.
Exactly. And on that, they're not marketing this hyperinflation, right? They're marketing hyperinflation as being, it's okay, we've got to have a great reset. We've got to have, the guy off the Demolition Man ruling the world, telling everyone it's a great reset and, all that. But hyperinflation, that is the next chapter we're going into. I actually remember very vividly on the other side of this wall in one of the meeting rooms here, doing a whiteboard session when the virus first started, going back in 2020, that I said that we wouldn't see the hyperinflation for maybe about 24, 36 months. We are seeing massive inflation at the moment. We are not in hyperinflation territory. We are going to go through, I actually said that we would, and some of you remember me saying this, that we will see very quick recessions, right? Yeah. Very quick recessions. What would normally take 10 years of recession might take a year. It'll collapse like what we're seeing. Seriously, if we think about these numbers, right? These are just the numbers. This is the year-to-date performance of any of these, right? Bitcoin got slammed years ago, right? But here we are with things that have gone down this year. Amazon, Salesforce, all the FANG stocks, Facebook, Amazon, Netflix, Google, all of those.
But not
shares.
Pfizer.
Well, Moderna's down, but
got a bad rap.
Got a bad rap.
Plots.
A few clops around the place. But, here we are looking at all these things. If this was anything else, they'd be like, this is a depression, right? This is a fucking depression here. This is made up. This is fake, right? Fiat means fake. It's fake money. It's a Ponzi scheme, Fugazi, whatever it said on Wolf of Wall Street. So,
but how long can they keep this facade up for? Because at the moment, you're in a depression whereby people cannot really afford any interest rate hike at all. They can't afford. They've got nothing left over.
All I know is that if there was a collapse, right, if everything turned to shit tomorrow, I know that this glass that might have cost $10 for 6 of them before might be $100 for 6. I don't have to go out and buy the glass because I've already got it. The money doesn't exist. I don't care about the money. I care about the asset, right?
Can you say what you said about $50 note?
What about?
Since when did a yellow piece of plastic with a dead abo on it be worth anything?
I didn't say that. I said a dead criminal on it. Jeremy, there's things you can't say in the world. Jeremy says lots of interesting things out there, but
But you did say that.
Maybe I said a dead criminal printed on it, right? A piece of plastic with a dead criminal.
Who is
People are fighting.
Who is the criminal?
Any of them on it. The Queen,
any of them, right? Ned Kelly. If only they did have Ned Kelly on the coin.
All of these notes, right? All these people that they put up, right? Like there's tables, right? We'll get into Elon Musk in a little bit. We'll get on to talking about.
What happens when the Queen dies? Are we going to still remain a Commonwealth country, or are we going to be a republic? And who's going to own us?
Well, they don't really own us anyway. They're middle management.
They are middle management. At the same time, we have a certain level of protection under the crown because no one's ever invaded a Commonwealth country. No one.
Yeah, because they're pretty heavy duty in there. So just like the Roman Empire, right? What they did is they went back throughout history, and in the Roman Empire, what they did is they went and just invaded all these countries, which is what they did to Australia. They were criminals. Australia started from criminals, right? When our ancestors all came here, they were criminals that got shipped off here. And then we went in and we murdered people and did bad things and all that sort of stuff. And then we built our country and our nation. And that's all they did. And what they do is they take the profits and hand them back in the form of taxes and royalties and all those sorts of things. So I believe that we're going to see just a change of the guard tower. It's all owned. We think the Queen is up there and she's the top of the food chain. There's many deeper, and you know that, Jeremy. You know the
as a
Trilateral
symbolic,
Commission.
And Bilderberg Group and all those, and the Carlyle Group and all these. There is something very symbolic about having someone who's been around for 70 years. Are we going to see King Charles on a coin? Because this is something no one.
We won't have a coin.
Years.
We won't have a coin. It's a great reset, right? They're going to take us digital.
Well, it'll be on a digital currency. On a digital currency then. But it is interesting. I always think that we always talk about, especially our Indigenous population, being completely victimised by what we did to them, which is true or horrendous. But at the same time, you're going to go, they have really affected us. And I look at that, especially as far as real estate, because every time you look at Indigenous culture, it's always about the land, the country, what it means, how important it is to us. And we've just taken a capitalist version of that in our love of real estate. Because this is, we have the same feeling. Obviously, we've added money, but every single person in Australia, I reckon, just loves the country, the land.
They want to own a bit of it.
They want to own a bit of it. They love being at the beach.
But they never own it. They never own it because you've always got these other gatekeepers that are up there. If your property's mortgage free, you still got.
Well, you haven't got your title deed anymore.
Well, you never had it to start off with.
Well, you had a physical one.
I'll print a piece of paper if you want. It's like getting an award when you're a kid at school,
With the real copies kept in a computer bank somewhere.
Exactly. So looking at our favourite topic of discussion at the moment, are people still talking about this, about Russia and Ukraine? Are they still talking about that out there? Or I don't know.
People are, but I don't watch the news. I don't watch any of it because it's sort of like watching a propaganda, and you just feel like these entities of hate. And I don't have a lot of heartbeats left, Nathan, and I don't want to waste them looking at these people lying to me on television and saying things that are blatantly not true. They don't know what's going on. For all we know, it's wag the dog. There may not even be a war going on. The whole thing's completely invented.
Exactly.
They're showing footage from Syria for 5 years ago and pretending it's Odessa. I mean, come on.
So everyone's talking about these sanctions. Once again, not really important. Not really important.
Other than we're losing a supply chain, otherwise we're the ones suffering.
Well, we've got all the materials here. We should be right.
We should be. We just got to build a manufacturing base somewhere.
Wagga. They've already got it for us in China.
How's it going to get here if they're closing down the ports? That's the thing. We've got to actually start making stuff here.
We're their slaves. We're going to ship it to China. We're going to pull it out of the ground.
Oh, yeah, and I get it from here.
So, looking at it, I'm just having a look here. When we talk about hyperinflation, we talk about famine. A lot of people think, and I talk about this very excitingly, like I love the thought and the prospect of a hyperinflation. The reality is I've never been through one. We've seen them. There's a lot of famine. There's a lot of...
That's not good. Famine is not good.
There's not. And I look at like the cost of everything going up, right? And I think to myself, like, shit, like, I guess I've built lots of cash flow, but what about when the cost, everyone, like you see in, a packet of eggs, 6 eggs is someone's monthly wage by the time they go to spend that money and get their wage. Like, what sort of famine will we have? What will happen to bills? All that sort of stuff. It's an interesting time, but holding the assets, self-sufficiency
is a very important thing. Whatever you can grow in your backyard, whatever you can... wherever you can, make sure you go to Woolworths only once a week, if you can.
I never go there. It's no.
Or if you have to go there at all, but you've got to buy your paper towels and your Q-tips from somewhere, don't you?
True.
Your dental floss.
These are just interesting topics, right? When you think about the news articles, right? Let's just look at some of them, right? Hyperinflation explained. Banks introduce negative interest rates. What was the other one beforehand? Russia, Ukraine, EU, right? War-fueled global hunger catastrophe on the way with solutions, though, to come by, right? Who would have thought that these would have been ever topics that would be in the news, right? It's like
10 years ago,
10 years ago, it would have been like, man saves dog, from crashing into a car.
Little boy lost in the Blue Mountains. Will they find him again?
Exactly, right? But these sort of articles, they're just sensationalist sort of clickbait sort of articles, and I know it because they've been in the media many, many times. Disrupted exports, drought, refugees to feed, and record high fertiliser prices to conspire to spread the food insecurity worldwide. There you go, the seeds, fertiliser.
It all comes from China. 98% of our fertiliser comes from China.
Yep.
And the same and did you see in the United States, they've had about 100 fires or something have burned down all their plants, food production plants.
I don't have any of those articles here, but go and research, folks. Go and research. If you don't think this stuff is set up by design, type into Google and research fires in food manufacturing plants. Yes. All the manufacturing plants, you see that these entities, these people, these avatars, right? We're about to get on to Elon Musk article here, right? All these avatars, they're doing all these things, right? Like, Bill Gates, he's got all these, great plans and these good things he's doing, philanthropy and all that sort of stuff.
Sterilizing the planet.
And doing
Africa.
all the things started there. People asked me many years ago about it. I said, if you think that's a good thing, then he's a good guy. If not, then you should be questioning and following that money trail we're talking about. But it's interesting that he's the largest landholder now, controls of the food supply and whatnot. And we've seen in the recent weeks, if you just Google fires in food manufacturing plants, there's literally dozens of manufacturing. They go, unfortunately, a plane crashed into a food manufacturing plant, exploded, dozens dead. Unfortunately, a blaze broke out in the food processing, gone, right? I've never seen like dozens of food manufacturing plants. Why are they all blowing up, right? It's like an insurance job. It's like someone's doing stock take on their goods. And it's
Lebanese stock take.
It could be a Lebanese stock take, right? They're all on fire.
But I guess the main question, though, that I ask is this. How does famine, because at the moment they can keep us under control. So long as the trucks are coming to Woolies and Coles and keeping their tummies full, we won't do anything. But as soon as the famine, as soon as people get hungry, that's when things get really ugly. And people then start lynching and going after them because, revolutions only happen on an empty
I was
stomach.
in the shops with my mate the other day, and we were chatting about it, right? You see, we were just talking, and he's like, did you see all those people that came in, right? There's people that are like 30s, 40s, 20s going in. They're going to the meat section. They're picking up the meat, and this is like Woolworths meat, right? This is like just cheap, dirty, plastic meat, right? And they're picking it up, and they're looking at the price on it, and they're like, oh, okay, put that down, right? And they're not buying it, right? So then you think about it, what are these people eating? They're eating their Beyond Meats, they're eating all these controlled manufacturing.
The noodles.
All the manufactured foods, right? What does it do? It keeps you suppressed, it keeps you, at a lower vibrational state.
Crystallizes the pineal gland, calcifies you, and sends you to the doctor much quicker. It starts shutting the organs down.
Inflammation, and whatnot. So people are still eating, but are they eating the nutritions that they need? Right?
Yeah.
I'm no nutritionist. I'm no dietary expert. I'm no one anything
No, but
on
the
that front.
preservatives, it's killing
in there,
people.
the bad oils they put in there, like
The salts, the chicken salt, which is basically a food group in the Western suburbs.
anything that comes out of a packet, anything that comes out of a packet in
I'm
the shop.
addicted to chicken salt, actually. Now, if you come to think of it.
We'll get you some help with that. We'll get you
Yeah,
some.
but
We'll
you
get
just-
you some.
But you understand that's the
Yeah.
difference between famine. At the moment, they're just filling us with really bad food, really bad
Yeah.
processed food, it's keeping the stomach full
Yeah.
and keeping you lethargic. But there's a big difference between you've got no food,
Yeah.
so you've got an empty stomach. That's when you start marauding and
Yeah.
and that's why I question, why would it be in the interest of the powers to be to have a hungry population? Because
No, you
that's
have
when
you have a controlled population.
can you control a hungry population?
Well, you've got no guns or nothing to fight you with. They've got
We
no
don't.
rights.
We
And
don't know.
That takes me on to my next topic, Jeremy, the Agent Smith effect, right?
Yeah,
People are brainwashed.
they are.
The people are brainwashed. And you go and talk to your friends about it and question something, right? I have very little conversations. I feel lonely nowadays. Jeremy, it's great we can have conversations.
Yeah.
Our community love
Yeah.
these conversations.
Yeah.
But you go and talk to someone, they're like, no, I saw it on TV, interest rates go up. No, I saw it on TV, Putin's a bad man. No, I saw it on TV
Evil.
that Kim Jong-un, little Kim, is a bad guy. He's got nuclear bomb as a dick, right? Whatever. These guys, it's like, okay, well, why? And why are they painted that way? That's a one-sided. You have a coin and it has two sides. Let's look at a coin, right? Maybe we've got one. Here we go. We've got the old 50-cent piece. This is when it was real money here, right?
Silver.
It's a
Nickel.
silver coin. It's silver. It's
Is it?
80% silver. It's a 1966 50-cent piece. These are really 50-cent pieces here, just for everyone that hasn't seen one before. Just knew that I was sitting there. You might see this side of the coin, right? Which is an ugly lizard chick on the back. But then we flip it over, there's the other side. There's also the edge to sit there and look at it from each side from, right? The reality is that when you're looking at the media, they're showing you one side of the coin, they're not showing the other story. And that is where the programming is coming from. Just like on the Matrix, the Agent Smith effect, where everybody will turn against you, right? Like you say something, you've got the cancel culture, you've got the people that call you out, the very strong belief system, the change of, programming for people in the last decade.
It's like a real zombie apocalypse, whereby
Yeah.
you literally, rather than argue, and they say 1 and 1 equals 11, you agree, yes, it does. And in order to get through, the zombie apocalypse, you've got to do like they do in The Walking Dead. You smear yourself in zombie blood when you're walking through so they don't attack you, because otherwise you've got to literally be under radar all the time.
Yeah.
Otherwise, people, they get very angry.
So lots of interesting sort of topics that are out there in the world right now. Today's one is the funniest, right? So, who smoked a joint before in their life? I'm not asking you, Jeremy. I know I've had a couple back in the day, but there's a saying for it, right? And it's a 420, right? If you say 420, it's like a sign for weed. Why did Elon Musk put a number? Everything he does is like calculated, right? And it's smart ass, right? It says here 54.20. Why did it not say $54, $54.33? You'd expect that more for someone like Elon. But it's got a funny little figure in there. Anyway, it's just funny. But all these, it's called controlled opposition, right? We're looking at all these people. I know from what's about to come out of my mouth, I might trigger people, but just question it, right? If there wasn't something wrong with it, you wouldn't need to get so angry, right? So just question it, right? That's all I ever do is just question things. So when we look at Elon Musk, right, he talks about he's sick and tired of all of these bad, things out there. He's going to buy it and take it private, right? So he can do whatever he wants with it, right? Who funded him for his $44 billion purchase? They go, he's got all this money, right? But is it really him, or is there an agenda behind it? Because with all these large organizations, you get lots of grants. So, for that company, Twitter, to be bought, they would have gone to CIA, which is Inquitel, and then they would have given crowdfunding and round 1, round 2, round 3 investors. They would have bought investors. So all these people would have been paid out, but who would have been able to trump those people? And that's the question, right? The government. Because the data, by the end of this year, there's bills that have been passed, you need to get verified. So for you to be watching this Facebook Live, you will most likely need to be uploading your digital identity to connect your Facebook page to you. which is another level of control, right? And everyone's like, yeah, Elon, he's our hero. He's also the guy that started the company Neuralink, which he's straight out said, I'm going to chip your brain, right? He's also the guy with the car which will turn off if you have done something bad. So when you
haven't paid your rego,
if you wrote a bad post on Twitter and said, Elon's got a small dick, then he will lock your car out. If you voted for the wrong political party, then it takes you to your concentration camp. If you did the wrong thing, it will take you to the police station. You'll be locked up. So when everyone's out there like, yeah, Elon's so cool, right? He bought Dogecoin. I question this bloke, right? And it's like, this guy says, he owns nothing. He's the richest guy in the world, and he lives in a cardboard box in the thing. He's making people feel better for owning nothing as well, right? Why is he at the World Economic Forum? Why is he hanging out with these sort of interesting characters that look like they're movie characters, right? Why is he hanging out with these sort of looking blokes? Anyone that shakes their hand, right? Would you go and shake the hand with a criminal? Right?
Then no.
Exactly, right?
I'd ask them, what am I even doing in their vicinity?
Exactly.
I'd be very worried.
So would we go and hang out with, some people have got cool personalities of being funny, right? If you saw someone that, I don't know, been to jail, good on them, right? Whatever. But
Pauline Hanson.
Yeah.
Most of the Senate.
Right. All those people, right? I know that, that the law of attraction, right? It's like, what are the common grounds? What are they coming together for, right? Why are they being there? Everyone's sitting there with this, Agent Smith sort of feel, and they're like, that's wrong. He's a good guy. Well, we don't know any of these people.
We don't even know if he exists. I've never met him. I question how many of these people are actually AI.
He could be, right?
We don't know.
He's aging worse than me, so he's,
How old is he?
I think he's about 50, 52,
really?
something like that. Yeah.
He's got what, 6 kids and that sort of thing.
Yeah,
and he's South African, isn't he? That's
he's from there. Yeah, he's South African. But yeah, I think a lot of this is identity, controlling of that digital world that we're heading into.
But he's the one who's sending all the rockets. Like, he's sending all the satellites. That SpaceX.
So why would you? I thought about this, right? If you were him, right? If you were, let's say you were a badass person, right? You were like Prince Andrew, right? Yeah. And you wanted to get all your evidence, right? You're Hillary Clinton, right? And you're one of these people, and you hang out with these people at the same sort of stomping grounds, right? You'd say, hey, Elon, next one you stand up, can you shoot up all my evidence, right? Send it off the planet, right? Send it to Mars or whatever, right?
Yeah, shoot it to the moon.
You don't know who's funding these things. You don't know who's got the control. You don't know where any of it's going.
But I do think it's really funny how you look at all the Earth with all its satellites all around it. It looks exactly like a coronavirus.
Don't say that we're going to be booted offline.
It's the microcosm looks like the macrocosm, and the macrocosm looks like the microcosm. I mean, the whole idea of the fact that we've got 10,000 satellites tracking absolutely everything on this planet, and he's one of the main proponents for why we've got this, because he's sending up satellites for complete surveillance of the planet. So of course
he'd be sending satellites up for people like Russia, for
everybody,
Ukraine, for China, right? And these are relationships you just don't get. Like, if I said to you, hey, send me the Prime Minister or President of China, Xi Jinping or whatever his name is, like Xi Jinping or whatever, like, you don't want to be able to give me his number, no one would be able to get me through, but yet alone to send his information up, allegedly into space. Like, these are pretty big relationships here. Like, who is the master of controlling this? Who's the architect of this system, right? And we're in this
the matrix.
Of the matrix. Who's organising it? And it's just interesting. We've got, a lot of cool things happening out there, and I've got lots of questions coming through, so we'll get on to some of the community's questions. We'll answer maybe 10 minutes of questions. And what do we have down here? So so we've got here,
there's Stano.
Yeah, Stano. He's Jeremy, nice to put a face to that voice. You look younger than you describe yourself. Yeah. Jeremy looks very young. I'm jealous. Brad, Nathan for PM.
That's going to happen. The kids want a dad. They want a dad.
Can you explain how to stay safe in hyperinflation while still expanding your portfolio? What sort of strategy would you choose? Owning assets. The worst thing you could own is pieces of money, pieces of plastic with dead criminals on. Because if you had $1,000, as I said to Stano today, if you had $1,000 last year, you wouldn't be able to buy the same thing that $1,000 would this year as well. So physical cash, no good. Any sort of digital illusion of wealth, no good. I want to have cash flow. I want to have assets that will bring that through.
Just get it out of the bank.
Adrian said 3 better 25-year-old in Quakers Hill, $1.4 million. Right? I remember those things were like 400 grand. They seemed expensive back then. Very, very interesting time. So you can still buy properties that are like they've been bought. We talk about the Matrix a lot, but we're going to go back to the future, right? We can go back and buy properties in areas where a lot of the stuff that we're picking up that's still cheaper than what it was 10 years ago. Lee said, check out New Zealand with mortgage rate and cash rate hikes. Yes, Lee, they are increasing cash rates. But as I said beforehand, all the countries that are increasing their cash rates, their treasury bonds are inverting. So the yield curve is inverting and we are seeing negative yields. What is happening is liquidity is getting sucked out of the system. And once again, all of the, we're heading into a deflation. Basically, we manipulate our currency backwards and try and remove some of the, the stimulus packages that are created, increase the cash rates. We see deflation. So it is the opposite to inflation. But if we have deflation, the whole system implodes at that point. So yeah.
New Zealand's the billionaire bolt hole of the planet.
I'm in New Zealand. We copied Australia. North Arm Cove, cheap, 40 minutes from Newcastle. The North Arm Cove, you'll never be able to build on that. I remember those land for $2,000, $3,000 for a block. You buy an acre of land, still like 30 grand. But if you'd pay council rates on it for the last 20 years, you'd make nothing.
Let alone inflation. You can't build on them yet.
You can't. Birchie, I assume the same. New Zealand has gone up in huge surges the last few months, correct? It is happening all around the world, but we will see those rates come crashing down. I give it 18 months from whenever we get our first rate hike. If we do, I'd love to see our rates go up because we'll just see things crash. Would see great opportunity. It would be amusing for me, but it would be disastrous for lots of people. It'd be disastrous. Yeah. Like when I say amusing, there's opportunity, but they couldn't do it. Like one little change on things, tiny change.
The entire thing can crash. It's
Literally.
like a Jenga.
Jenga blocks, right? So everybody's been saying how great they are and how great of an investor they are because they bought shares last year, right? Where is the article? Where's that piece of paper I had beforehand? Where's the one with the shares? The share prices, Jeremy? Share prices.
You mean with the
here we go. Yes. Here we go. So I'll just take off my mate's thing. I'll just copy and paste his printed it of his post. Like that's just the start, right? If you don't think that that's a correction, that's a fucking crash, right? That's a crash of stock markets. That's a crash of everything. Property has a delay effect, right? Properties might take 6 months, might take 12 months, might take 24 months. We haven't seen that yet, but when you start playing with the strings a bit, we will see that transpire. So,
but we can't build anymore. This is the thing: is the building costs have gone up, and we've got more demand, and there will always be more demand everywhere in Australia for property.
Yeah,
because there's more demand than there are actually property. Yeah, and so everywhere is up for grabs at the moment because we're seeing a huge decentralisation taking place.
Bowie said a French property went up from 1.8 to 2.6 in the last 12-15 months, 800k. It's insane. Hyperinflation. It's just the start of it. A few clots around the place. So funny. Must have liked what we said it. Elon has now bought Twitter. Well, it'll be interesting to see what happens from that. Valid point, change of guard from the Queen. Thumbs up if you want to see Jeremy for a future live stream. Everyone loves Jeremy.
Great. Live. Joyce Pump, is it
Did you see Dogecoin pump and dumper is a puppet? Do you think? Do you think Carolyn posted this? Do you think Dogecoin's pump and dumper is a puppet? If yes, how so? Very, very much so. Snap another good point, verifying online profiles, cut out the spam bots and trolls, but that now flow across to other platforms, laws.
I think that a lot of the crypto, it's like what the pokies were in the early 2000s, whereby, it's features on every third spin.
Yeah.
That's basically what I look. Some people say, look, it's Bitcoin or shitcoin. Everyone's got an opinion. Everybody's an expert, but we really don't know where it's going to land.
If you noticed, everything went up with stimulus packages, low rates, government bonds being purchased by the central banks, everything inflated. Didn't matter what it was. Now we're seeing a deflation, right? Mm-hmm. But if we have a deflation, just think about what would happen in a deflation. The shops, their prices would have to go down. The shops won't make any money. That means that these stock markets, which are crashing already, imagine if these places had stock that they were selling. Let's say that you have the price go down, the cost of advertising for any online retailer or whatever, if their fixed costs have to go up for these companies to make profit. So, deflation would blow that system apart. It would implode. It wouldn't even explode, right? Hyperinflation will make it explode, and we are about to go into our next boom. We have got no bullets left in the gun, right? We've got no bullets left in the gun. The only way to stop and to save the world as we know our society in modern day society is to keep this Ponzi scheme alive. The Ponzi scheme is not that these shares are worth anything. The Ponzi scheme is not that your property is worth 1.4 million, 1.8 million. It doesn't matter. It only matters if you compare it to dollars, right? If you compare it to how many cars you could sell your house for. If you sold your house in 1999 for 200 grand, it's now worth $2 million. That house you sold in 1999, you could have bought, how many cars could you have bought back in the day? But how many cars could you buy now?
A Nissan Skyline in 1999.
Exactly.
You'd be making 200 grand on it now.
Exactly. So it's very, very important. We are heading into a very, very interesting world. I'm excited. I saw this coming.
Tangible assets. That's
tangible assets, right?
Because it's at the end of the day, we're still living under common law. Common law is based on property. The more property you have, the more rights you have, and the more freedom you have, because it's owned by you. Whether the banks have it or not, doesn't matter. That's only going to help with hyperinflation anyway.
You got more options. So, Jeremy, I always talk about hyperinflation. I say that if we had hyperinflation, we would see that the debt would become worthless, because your debt at 200 grand today,
two loaves of bread would pay. I mean, exaggerated, but you paid off your house for 2 loaves of bread.
Exactly. How many times you said that you were going to go overseas? So Jeremy's gone on holidays next month. So I found out about today.
It's not a holiday. I'll still be working, but just from a different location. We're globally linked up. We're global citizens now, Nathan. Doesn't matter where you are.
Exactly.
You can still maybe 3 o'clock in the morning, but I'll be still talking to you.
I know, but like on your journeys, right? You'll probably go to some nations which you'll see a hamburger will cost 250,000 of the relevant nation, right? At one point, that 250,000 would have bought you a 3-bedroom family home in that location as well. And it happens to, like, I noticed that when we post and do videos and our community, we've got a global community, right? Most of the people that we interact with on a day-to-day basis, half may have been born here, half of them have come from different nations. Doesn't matter if,
the majority of people that I deal with on a day-to-day basis
are migrants.
They're first generation.
So
they've
first generation migrants.
Yeah.
And so first generation migrants, they come from all different nations. Someone just wrote here in the comment section that in Italy, when it changed from the euro, everything doubled overnight, right? And it's just a change of a currency. And it didn't just double overnight. You had a new period of 20 years. The euro is dead, right? For people that don't realise, the euro was a dead currency, and it's crap. It didn't even survive 20 years. And everything's getting inflated away via the euro at the moment. We've got 6 central banks. I need to go and check the actual central banks. There are things like Pakistan, Lebanon, Turkey. The central banks have gone. They're screwed. They're dead.
And they got rid of Imran Khan too. And the people loved him. We have no say. We have absolutely no say. The idea that we live in a democracy is just a word. It means absolutely nothing. But look, when I go over to the UK, because I've got to see family over there, they are pretty connected out there. So I get to find out exactly what's going on.
That's good.
Which will be interesting, especially as far as banking.
Would like to hear some feedback, Jeremy. You can tell from his tweed jackets that he wears, and he's got some swag. And Jeremy's got you came from a very good upbringing, Jeremy.
I came from privileged. I will say that absolutely. It was a privileged upbringing in the sense that it was unthinkable that you would ever live not on the beach or not on the harbour. Everything outside of Vaucluse and Palm Beach was why. But this was a long time ago, and now I look at why would you even want to go near those places?
Yeah,
not the same.
And it's something that
I love the Western suburbs.
Your knowledge, your worldly knowledge, and
I was born 30 years too early. That was what I would say. But it was necessary because you got to see the world from a different perspective. You know what I mean?
Before it was messed up, right? Like we have knowledge now that we can take into look at younger people that are around us, and it's like I feel old to half our staff in the office because it's like. We're talking about stuff and have no idea what the world used to be like.
And I think they're losing that idea of, especially the World War II generation, we've never had to sacrifice anything. People do not know what sacrifice is. None of us do.
Yeah.
No one under the age of 70 has any memory whatsoever of what people went through in World War II, whether we're, rations and all these sort of things. And this is a reality that we're going to be facing.
My father would have been 83.
Yeah,
83 last week, and he.
When was his birthday?
In April, in 19th of April.
Was it so the day before Hitler's birthday?
I think a couple of days. I don't know what that is.
April the 20th.
Look, he's just full of knowledge. This guy's got the randomest sort of things. But
it was my mother-in-law's birthday.
Oh.
God rest her soul.
It's God bless his soul. With my father, I remember growing up, I remember I once went to a museum, and he said these ice blocks, they were like a box you put ice on top, and he told me about there was a fridge for a week, and you'd eat bread with dripping, like some animal fat.
That's right. Bread and dripping was and the same thing. I got a mate who took his mum, and she was an old Greek lady, and took her to a posh restaurant here in Sydney. First thing that came out was bread and olive oil, and she goes, "You're kidding me." You're kidding me? This is what we grew up on rations during the war in Greece was bread and olive oil. So we had now you're telling me this is the posh food?
And when we look at the food that we're eating really today, right? We're in a depression, we're in a very bad state of the world that we live in. And I remember when we went into lockdowns, and when first lockdowns 2020 came through, I remember sitting in a restaurant. I was with my mum, and I was sitting there looking around, and I was just seeing and taking it all in. I was like, there's literally people just sitting at home ordering food, and the takeaway shops have never been so busy. This is not how depression should have been or has been in past generations. It's a very manufactured world, but people aren't really realising their quality of life is not what it was 10 years ago, not what it was 20 years ago. Quality of life is being lost constantly, and it's going to become more rapidly diminishing. And people might feel happy because they're comparing their life to a little check mark of check mark of Instagram, or they might be checking it up to money. They go, oh, my house is worth this amount of dollars or whatever. But reality is their life is getting shitter and shitter, and they're getting more and more enslaved into the system.
Into a system, and they don't. And this is the first generation. I look at the kids around today, and I can honestly say that. The life that I had as a kid was better. My parents would never say, "You don't know how lucky you are." They always said that, and that's been going on for hundreds of years. This is the first generation you can actually look and go, "Actually, you don't have it that great." Your childhood and your teenage years in lockdown, wearing masks and not being able to drive everywhere and completely regulated, is just absolute shit compared with what I had.
Yeah. The spiritual warfare on the mind.
On the spiritual warfare, and you're just bombarded with propaganda all the time.
Yeah. But people are still buying it, right? And that's, I guess, the biggest takeaway from today's live stream is you question, right? And if you didn't question for the last 2 years, I think that a lot of people are starting to question as to why they're having to go for the third, the fourth, the fifth
and
round,
getting sick
from it, and people are starting to question that, right? But they listened to a rhetoric. They were coerced and forced from their governments, but yet, we're going out to vote for our suppressor, right? And that's where I think a lot of people are now forgetting what has happened over the last couple of years, and not necessarily, questioning the agenda or the comments that are coming through the media. The media has been there as a ploy for the last 50, 60, 70 years since it came out.
Well, government's a religion. The way that people used to look at the church 300 years ago, they'd do whatever the church, Catholic Church, Protestant, would tell them. Now, and everyone who hates religion now, it's just made a religion of the government. So even though they may complain the way they used to complain about priests and reverends and stuff like that, they just complain about their leaders now. But they still will do whatever they're told by the government, because it's the government is religion. And they can't bear to think that what they put their faith into is lying to them and has no duty of care towards any of the citizens whatsoever. We're just mules for the tax office. And then we can become mules for Big Pharma. And now they just want us to be mules from Big Pharma and the tax office simultaneously.
And if you think talking about mules, if you came into the country 100 years ago, talking about the way that, people say, we didn't have technology, we didn't have electricity, whatever. But imagine just rocking up to a nation and, we acknowledge that, half of my staff, maybe 3/4 of my staff are migrants, half of our community are migrants, and the amount of shit that I have to see that a migrant has to go through to become a citizen of our state, it's like they're trading commodities of, okay, you send five people to our country, we'll send off tax credits for them. The human life is worth about $500,000 in tax credits, is how they view the humans. And going back 100 years ago, before this system was in, you could just rock up to a nation and they'll be like, I don't care who you are. They might, a bit of banter between people, but they'll be like, okay, go get the shovel, let's go do some work, right? You could just rock up without borders. But now there's so much control with visas, with tax file numbers, with all this sort of indoctrination and tied into the system. And we see people like Elon Musk saying, it's great that we've got we're going to be making things better, and security features and stuff like that. Biosecurity. Sell us your retina, right? Just like they did with the iPhone. Sell us your thumbprint, just like they did with the iPhone.
And be able to chronic your health on another platform and go, oh, you look like you've got a heart issue, so you get a monitor to go to the doctor. Because it's all been registered in the chip that you've got here. So they have absolutely, and they think this is a wonderful thing forward because it will really help. Oh, you've got a cancer cell in you better come in and start chemotherapy now.
Talk about all these companies and who owns them and stuff. Do you find it interesting, right? Going back 5 years ago, all the people that would have Snapchat, they would take a picture of themselves and they'd have those masks on, right? Why did they have the mask on? And what was the purpose of Snapchat, right? Like for those masks and filters, right? Who invested into it, right? There's patents around Snapchat. I actually shared the patents in Birchfeed many years ago about that it was an algorithm for identifying facial recognition. So it was a Snapchat became it was taking the data and calibration of your features, so it could create facial recognition, which is now being used for all of today's new biometric cameras that are out there. So people were playing with this app thinking it was the funnest thing out there, chicks putting doggy ears on or whatever. Next minute their data is being used, which you didn't sign up for. It might be in the terms and conditions, right? But you never signed up. I never signed up for all the cameras around the street to allow them to take my face and identify who I am. If they take photos of me and you, and then you and the next person, and me and the next person, it can group us together, show us what we never signed up for that, right? But people aren't even questioning that, and that's the scariest part of the world that we live in.
And they're
today.
doing it now. Dubai Airport now has put an aquarium in for when you land. So when you see, you're looking around like this. All of it is about gathering all your entire facial and bodily features, because you're going like this as you're looking around like this, and they're using that, thinking, it's just it's not. It's all about gathering data and facial recognition.
I think everyone should wear a balaclava when they go out. I've got a few of them.
Or a burqa.
A burqa or a balaclava.
You got a niqab.
And yeah, I think that there's but
they
they get you on
us
the
going
ganter.
out.
They get you on the
They
ganter.
get on this one here.
They get you on your ganter. So the ganter's when you're walking, so they can tell that your hips are in a certain way and that how you walk. They have all of that data from the facial recognition.
You're getting arthritis. Go and see it.
So,
We keep it up.
yeah, I think that
I think people need to go and eat something.
I've got some questions here. One question is why there's so many cameras in the street, Bunnings and Coles. You got to go back and follow that money trail. Is who is putting that in there? Who is sponsoring it? Who is supporting it? You asked me beforehand, what do I think about the future with Prince Charles, King Charles, whatever. Going back about 5 years ago, one of my mates told me about this. Geomapping, right? Every centimetre of the country has to be geomapped. The local states and governments got ordered to put those little cameras up. So if you go down any freeway now, you see those real shiny white cameras at every traffic light. They're there to geomap every centimetre of the country. If you go into the shops, what they did is they did deals with grants, so you can actually get a grant now. So if you've got a business, you can actually apply to get $5,000 back, right? And what that $5,000 is for a grant for you to install security cameras into your business, right? No security camera comes without audio nowadays, and the security camera for you to get the $5,000, must link back up to the police network.
Really?
So every business can be heard from the cops, yes. So you're selling your soul on that front. So all of these companies are getting all these grants and whatnot for selling this biometric data back to the police station. So very, very interesting. So yeah, lots and lots of questions from the community. I don't want to go on for too long tonight. I will be coming back. I've been asked to do a weekly sort of like 10-15 minute Facebook Live, so I'm going to keep very short topics to talk about on a weekly basis. Might try that for the next couple of months.
Short and sweet, because people, even me, when I look at, if it's
Yeah, it's too
longer
long.
than 10 minutes, I'm not going to watch it.
Exactly.
We're really time deficient now. It's just time to go.
So I will be coming back with more Facebook Lives shortly. But yeah, on that note, there's a couple of comments on the description of this video. If you do like some of the weird stuff we talk about, head over to birchfeed.com, birchfeed.com. There's no AU. I have a Telegram channel where I send out daily information, random stuff. It could be many different topics, but it's all very relevant to the world we live in. A lot of the stuff is protect us, to question and to make sure that we have a open mind about the world. Yeah, and a community for us to go, okay, cool, like, I'm not weird for my thoughts, I'm not weird for, my views. So it's free, you don't have to be a tight ass and worry about spending money on it. It doesn't cost you anything, don't ask for your credit card. Just head over to birchfeed.com, get added into Birchfeed, and you'll get some daily content from us, from myself actually. And on that point, a lot of you guys are questioning, what should we do next? What's going to happen with interest rates? I've talked and touched on that today. I'm very, very confident about the interest rates. I'm very, very confident with the comments that I made over the last few years. We're right on track with the crash of our economy as we know it. There's lots of opportunities out there. If you do need to talk to someone about that, you can have the opportunity to chat with Jeremy or to speak with one of his colleagues in the investor relations team.
Gemma, Wayne.
Yep, Charlie. With the investor relations team. So there's a link. These guys are very busy as well. There's a link in the description. Follow the link. You can book yourself in for a free discovery session. Have a chat with Jeremy. Jeremy's not going to sit there and say, hey, buy 10 properties. Jeremy's role is to help, guide and nurture everyone. You might need to speak to an accountant.
Yes.
You may need to be educated.
Get finance in order. Everything is about structure.
Yeah.
You've got to have a really good structure in place before you can build. It's like the foundations have to be there, and then you can build.
What would be your top 3 things that you could comment about the most successful investors that you have? What would be the top 3 things that you you've been doing this now for about 5 years. You've seen lots of, you've seen success and you've seen unsuccessful people.
People who say no a lot and
Yeah.
and don't have trust. You've got to trust.
Yeah.
And that's.
But a lot of
one
people
thing.
trust TV though. Like it comes
Yeah,
down.
but if you trust TV, you're going to have people in your ear all the time telling you contrary things.
Yeah.
Everyone's going, oh, that's bullshit. And that. Whatever you choose, doesn't matter whether it's Nathan or whether it's anyone else, stick to it. That's what the really super rich have always done.
Mm-hmm.
Once they make a decision, they stick to it and they will go through the bad times and the good times and they'll always do well.
Mm-hmm.
The worst thing you can do is not educate yourself.
Yeah.
Make it really understand what you're getting into, because this isn't a get-rich-quick scheme. Nothing that is worth doing is. It's not, pulling a lever on a poker machine and expecting a payout. It's not. But it has to be, have a really strong structure and a foundation.
Structure,
That's what we
strategy.
Structure and strategy is the most important, and perseverance.
Yeah.
But we do the heavy lifting for you.
I find it interesting, Jeremy. Like you've been here long enough, you've worked with a lot of investors. There's investors that we know from 2007, let's just say 5 years ago, that would have bought a property and, they were like, oh, I bought it and it only went up 50 grand, I'm going to sell it, it's a dud, right? And those things now, are like, they bought it for 200, they're now at 600 grand because people's gratification, right? Like
instant gratification. They want to see results, and this is one of the... impatience is a trait that all of us have. All of us want to get, and everything's geared towards immediate gratification, instant gratification.
And that's why we like instant equity, but it's like...
We do. But look, and that really does, some people do have instant equity. Sometimes it takes a few months, sometimes it even takes a year.
Yeah.
But you've got to have, that's why it's important to have a strategy in place, and it's important to have a structure in place.
Yeah. And what other sort of things that you've seen?
Look, what I love is when you see people who are on not a huge income, amass a portfolio over about 3 years of about 11 properties. That's what I really love, because one, they say yes a lot, and they'll take it to the end. If something's up with the property, they still get their deposit back, and then they move on to the next thing. But the thing is that they always want to be doing something.
On average, how long would it take? And like, we're talking current market here, we're not talking about old money or anything like that. On an average person, like you said a couple of comments beforehand, Jeremy, like, like it's hard for people with a 100 grand income to get a 600 grand mortgage or $1 million house in Sydney to live in. On an average income of say like 80 grand or so, how long would it take someone on average to get to say 10 properties in their portfolio? If they came to you with 50 grand or 100 grand today, how long would it take them to get to 10 if they were committed and focused? And
I'd say you could do it in 18 months.
18 months?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Because we've seen it, because we've got one guy who's not on a huge income, who is just there and will accept anything. He'll take, in the middle of nowhere, like a 50 grand property.
Yeah.
And he knows it's going to get $200 a week, and before you know it, he's got it, and he sees. We saw that happen with these, especially in areas where we're seeing huge infrastructural changes, and and especially with the decentralisation that's taking place in Australia. It's no longer just metro.
Yeah.
All across the nation.
Cool. And what would be your top 2 investor stories that just come to your head of someone that's done something cool?
Oh, look, I think
without saying the names.
No. I think the ones that did that bulk deal when they bought properties that took 6 months to settle and walked out with 150 grand. In equity. That to me was because they're at the beginning, because a lot of those investors were at the very beginning. They maybe bought 1 or 2 properties with you, cheapies, and then they stuck it through for this one, and they were just absolutely over the moon when their valuations came back.
I was thinking about one of your investors, and you know this person very well. There's a son and a mum. Near your big property.
Down
don't say where. Don't say where. But how many properties did that person?
11.
11.
He had 1 property when he came in. He's got and that's in less than 3 years.
Yeah, 3 years. Yeah.
He's got 11
That's
properties.
typical sort of
And I
portfolio.
think, and he's been very clever about it. But he's someone who's very positive and sticks to his guns.
Yeah. And it's
that really makes it worthwhile when you actually see people actually become more emancipated from their day-to-day job as their cash flow increases
Yeah.
and their basic wealth. And we do have clients now, and look, it isn't with everybody, but it really does depend on servicing. We do have a number of clients that got 300,000 sitting there in equity,
Yeah.
that because the wife's having a kid,
Yeah.
and the income's gone down, they can't get.
Yeah.
But it's there.
Yeah.
You know.
And any other tips or anything for anyone while you're here today?
Look, just I'd say have trust and know that the rules are emancipation from the matrix. The
Yeah.
more property you have, the more rights you have. That's always been the case. That's why everything in the media is always going to be anti-property, because it gives you rights. It takes you out of the matrix. It does.
It's true.
90% of common law is based in property, and that's why you're going to be a landlord.
Talk about that, Jeremy. I'm just going to go over a little bit, and I know I'm going to be told, like Nathan, you said, should have had it, but maybe just an extra couple of minutes, right? The last couple of things.
Minute, we're on almost at a
Common
minutes.
law. You've said common law a fair bit, right? Like
I use it a lot because Westminster system's divided into Roman law, which is obvious where that comes from, and common law, which actually comes from the Muslims, believe it or not. The idea that man is completely and utterly his own boss in life. He has that every man has a right to property, every man has a right to be his own king, and have a destiny for how he wants to live his life. And that is demonstrated through property. And that's the first thing that was signed was the Magna Carta, which is property rights. And it still exists today. And they don't want you to know because they can't dismantle it. Let's try as much as they can't dismantle it. And that is why the more property you have, the more rights you have.
That was just a random
Freedom.
question. That was just a random question, Jeremy, about common law, because I know that there's lots of people that are so caught up in the world of this Western society sort of law, the Commonwealth law that everyone, would it be Commonwealth law? What law is everyone guided under?
Well, a Commonwealth law trumps state law, trumps everything. That's why they didn't get involved with the whole Scamdemic thing.
Yeah.
But at the bottom line is our indivisible rights to pursue our own destinies, and that's what we're protected by that.
Yeah.
Still
Yeah.
to this day.
Do people know that they're covered by it?
No, they don't know that they're covered.
Why don't
by it.
they? Because it's on the news.
Because it's not on the news. They don't want Carl and Stefanovic and Kochi and these people. Want you watching
They're
their show.
advertisers. They're advertisers and they're rulers.
They're advertisers, and there's an agenda, and with everything is a briefing. Like,
Yep.
newspapers are not there to give you the news. They're briefing for the government to be able to poll people and know whether they're going to be in office or whether they have to hand over their SIM card to someone else.
Yeah.
It's just a
Where
revolving door.
would someone find out more information about common law, Jeremy? Because I know there's a lot of people here that would love your expertise in, like, not that
Look,
you're-
I don't have an I just grew up in a legal.
knowledge.
I grew up in a legal family. I'd say just do your own research, know your rights. Go on. Everything is on the web.
Yeah.
Everything is. Know your rights.
You might have
Leave it
to
alone.
dig deeper in,
Yeah.
because it's all purged and taken
Yeah.
away. But places like BitChute and decentralized sort of platforms.
But there is a thing called Know Your Rights. That's
Yeah, I know
your
that,
concept.
so, yeah,
And these are very important things, so you know what you're getting into and know what you legally you can do, because the law is accessed by everyone. But at the same time, the more money you have, the better legal representation you have.
I have very good legal representation now, Jeremy. I love when I sue people and stuff. It's great.
Yeah.
But it's something that everybody should have their own. Everyone should have their own, freedom and personal liberty and freedom. That's the thing I've always said here. Live life on your terms. Have your own personal liberty and freedom, and that's what it's all about. And Jeremy, you're a great shepherd to the community. Everybody loves your.
That's true, but only as good as the person who's sort of like made it possible, Nathan.
Thank you.
But you are the most interesting person that I have met since I came back from Texas, and I can say that. And I say that to clients as well, because it was like coming back, and I thought I was in the deep south again, whereby here I was amongst the people, the CEOs and leaders and people like Howard and his brother. But you're just like the house Negro. All I'm hearing is like, and you're the first person that comes and goes, no, we're emancipating ourselves from all this shit. You don't need to be part of this scene. Here's your cabal, build your own wealth.
Yeah. The family cabal, everyone, you look at these houses of wealth, right? And everyone's like, the royalty, like you said that you've got strong ties to the UK and
only through my dad, I have that family.
But like, you don't see it so much here, but like intergenerational wealth, right? It's not even a thing that's discussed. It's like, oh, let's get like a will or something like that. And it's like, okay, you've got the brother and sister have to divide the car, the Honda Accord gets split up and it's $3,000. And then, but there's no talking about intergenerational wealth. Where has intergenerational wealth gone to here? People don't even have wealth.
No, they don't. But you can build that. I mean, I do know I had neighbours and stuff down in Birmingham who had like 3 or 4 generations of money. They brought in a dynasty consultant. The mother brought in a dynasty consultant. But this is something that you can build. It takes time to build over time, and but it can be done. And property is probably one of the best ways yet of being able to do that, and just rely on the expertise of others. Someone who's got 240 properties knows what they're talking about. Wouldn't you say, Nathan?
I'd hope so. I know a thing or two about it, and protecting it, growing it, building it, capitalising upon it. So I guess. But
knowing what to do with it is another thing as well. It's the difference between old money and new money, Nathan. Is that old money knows what to do with the money.
Yeah.
Whereas, there's one thing saying, let me just make more and more money, but what are you going to do with it?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, how are you going to, build a great art collection? That's what the Americans did. The Carnegie Mellons and stuff. We're going to build libraries and colleges and schools and universities. And do things with our money and become great philanthropists.
It's not about getting the new BMW series or the Mercedes or the new Louis Vuitton. It's about
the brand, and that's a real issue, and that's something people need to be educated in, especially because you've got a lot of great artists. We're producing magnificent painters at the moment in Australia, and so people will go, why am I paying $10,000 for this painting? And they rock up in a Mercedes that's cost $200,000. This is what you value. It's something that's actually going to go down in price. Whereas here's something whereby you are actually going to have something that is part of intergenerational wealth.
It's like you can always tell the difference between old money and new money.
Yes, you can.
Very, very different.
It's a very different mindset.
I fell into that trap actually, to start off with, right? Maybe about 7, 8, 9, 10 years ago, like, buying cool cars and all that sort of stuff.
People go through it. There's nothing wrong with it. You go through it, but then you get out of it and you realise, no, this isn't right. There's something else you can do with it. And you can make it real, make it happen. Exactly.
If you guys would love an interesting chat, click on the link in the side, book in a discovery session with Jeremy. Just write in. You want to chat to Jeremy,
or Gemma, or Pat, or Charlie, or Wayne.
There's a team here, right?
Great team. They're all great to talk to.
Everyone's character. Everyone's good. Everyone's got the knowledge, and everyone's different. But a lot of people don't realise. A lot of people watch my videos and like, oh, Nathan, he's cool. He's like the guy from Western Sydney, whatever. But we've got hundreds of staff nationally in all different businesses, right? And a lot of things, like even Jeremy, like we talk about the team that you need. Like just around the corner from our office here, we've got about 20 accountants that work from office just around the corner, which are part of our business. We've got, a legal team that's just down in Liverpool, which is a part of our business. We've got, levels in this office. We've got to keep getting new offices because we're running out of space for our team that keeps growing, and we're trying to share desks and make the desks smaller. Jeremy's seen over the years the desks have got smaller and smaller, trying to fit.
Mine's
so many
got
people.
bigger now as I've expanded it, as I've
moved
my shit. Buy myself some space here. You know what I mean? But that's the thing, it's all part of the strategy when you're on board, because everything's interconnected, so everyone has to understand what the strategy is, whether it's someone getting your finance, when someone's managing your property, whether someone's doing your accounting. They're all part of a team that understand this basic fundamental strategy that's going to build your wealth. And so everyone has to be on board. You can't have someone who's sort of saying, actually, no, I've got a mate down the road who's got a land development and they're $700,000. You're much better off buying that. be able to
And there's
wait
lots
2
of agendas
years.
out there.
Yeah, everyone's got an agenda.
Follow the money, because people that'll say get a bigger property. There might be the broker. They'll say get the bigger property, but that's because they write a bigger loan and then they get it all over and done with in one hit, rather than you coming back 10 times wanting to get 50 grand equity out and then losing money. So yeah.
All right.
But on that note, guys and girls, thanks a lot for tuning in. Click on the links. Make sure you're on Birch Feed.
Like
make
and
sure
subscribe.
Like and subscribe. And let's let us know if you want Jeremy to come back shortly, and we'll get him back. Everyone love him.
No.
Here, look at this. I'm liking the party at the back, Jeremy.
Yeah, really? Oh, this is Nathan's office. It's party favours up here.
I'm okay with the Ford, Jeremy. So everyone's commenting. Oh, at the back there, there's bottles of alcohol and stuff that people have bought me over the years. I don't even drink them. I don't drink alcohol. I used to, but not anymore.
There's a weird thing in this office. There used to be alcohol everywhere. No one touched anything. I just
going back years ago, there was lots and lots of alcohol, but that got consumed, and the stuff that's there doesn't really get drunk. And yeah, one day I should have.
You're too busy to drink.
Too busy.
Too serious.
Can't handle a hangover. I'm too busy.
Yeah, I get up in the morning.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't go to work.
Thanks a lot for tuning in, guys. Make sure to book in a discovery session with Jeremy. Follow the link and see you on Birch Feed. Have a great evening, and we'll catch up next Tuesday. Bye for now, guys.
All right.